At the end of last week's episode, Joe brought up the age-old problem, the thing that theologians and armchair theologians have struggled with forever. If God is all-powerful and all-loving, why does God allow terrible things to happen? Joe's answer came from Thomas Aquinas. His explanation is that God allows bad things to happen to work out the greater good of the universe. It's a variation on God works in mysterious ways, or we cannot know the mind of God. Basically, this is saying that all of this is a mystery, but he has faith that whatever seemingly bad things happen end up being a net positive for the universe. I personally don't know the answer. I used to rack my brain trying to understand all of the suffering in the world and trying to square that with a loving God. But at this point in my life, I don't even want to know why these things happen. I know that these things happen, and I've learned over the years that what we make of our circumstances is really the most interesting, because that part is within my control. What do I do with the circumstance? This season, perhaps more than ever, I'm seeing people who have taken what, on the surface, seems like a tragedy, and have allowed the space for it to be something else too. Because, as we all know, two things can be true. I imagine I've mentioned before that Viktor Frankl, neurologist, psychologist, and Holocaust survivor, said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." The quote is often stopped there, but he goes on to say, "In our response lies our growth and our freedom." It reminds me of the Taoist parable of the farmer. A farmer, one day out plowing his field, his neighbor comes along and says, "You're so fortunate to have a horse to help you plow your fields." The farmer responds, "Yes, perhaps." That night, the horse runs away, and the next day his neighbor learns about it and says to the farmer, "What bad luck that your horse has run away." "Yes, perhaps," the farmer said. The next day, the farmer's horse came back and brought 6 wild horses with it. Of course, the neighbor comes to the farmer exclaiming, "You're rich. What fortune? 7 horses." The farmer, of course, says, "Yes, perhaps." A few days later, the farmer's son was out breaking one of the new horses and fell and broke his leg. The neighbor, still not seeing where this story is going, comes and bemoans the broken leg. "Now you will have nobody to help you with your crops or with the horses. What terrible luck." Yes, perhaps. Later that week, the army came, forcing all able-bodied young men into service. Because the boy had a broken leg, he was allowed to stay at the farm. The neighbor sees this and exclaims, "Your son has been spared from certain death. What great fortune." To which the farmer replies, "Yes, perhaps." So often my mind is like the farmer's neighbor, simply assessing a thing and assigning a simple value to it. Lost horse bad, 7 horses good, broken leg bad. But that's almost never the whole story. The farmer leaves space for the thing that happened to be more than a simple good or bad. Is the lost horse a difficulty? Of course it is. Is it possible that it's something else as well? Yes, perhaps. Does God allow these difficult things to happen to teach us a lesson? Are they testing our faith? Must I suffer so that the universe as a whole can benefit? I don't know. After all these years, I'm finally realizing that these are not questions for me. People much smarter than I have been wrestling with these questions for thousands of years, and unless something happened in the last few minutes, we still don't have an agreed-upon answer. Here's what I do know. Sue, in episode 1, had a terrifying experience that brought her face to face with her own mortality. And she learned that her purpose here is to experience love. In an effort to give away a kidney and provide life for a stranger, Jeff found the cancer that would take his life. And he wrote a book that will impact not only his kids, but thousands of others around the world. Kelly was diagnosed with ALS that will certainly take her life. And, being forced to slow down, she's nurtured the relationships that are life-giving, now flourishing like never before. Aaron was forced by his diagnosis to put his life on hold, and is now stronger in his faith than ever before. And Joe woke up one day unable to work the coffee machine, and 48 hours later learned that he had multiple myeloma. Yet Joe's message for us is not, "This is a terrible thing." Joe's message is that life is precious, it's lovely, and that now is the time to experience this lovely life. Whether it's carrying a big bucket of sap, writing a book, deepening your relationship with the divine, or simply loving those around you. Were these diagnoses terrible? Sure. There's no denying the devastation that these people experience. But were these diagnoses gifts? Also, yes. I don't know why things happen, and I've given up that search. What I know is that so often, life is what I make of it. The circumstances are often difficult, but what I make out of each circumstance is up to me. I want to be more like the farmer and less like the neighbor. My hope is that when I have difficult experiences, perhaps I can leave a little more space between that stimulus and my response. I want to leave room for the possibility that more than one thing is true. I want to feel sadness and leave space for happiness to coexist. I want to feel fear and leave space for courage. I want to experience loss and leave space for growth. I want to let go of that need to simply label everything, good or bad. I want to engage in the complexity of life and find all that it has to give. We live in a dangerous world, there is no doubt. But I don't want to live my life afraid, defensive, angry, and pouting. And Joe and all of my other guests are teaching me that even when the worst difficulties arrive, there is room for it to be more. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. May the space I allow become big enough for me to find growth and freedom. This is Dying to Tell You.
Hi, this is Chris, the producer for Dying to Tell You, and welcome to the Ferris Bueller part of the podcast where we talk over the credits. Cody and I just wanted to remind you of the voicemail service we have set up called By the Way. This is a voicemail service where you can call and leave messages directly for anyone who is no longer with us. So if you're thinking of them, you just want to tell them you love them, you miss them, you have a memory to share, maybe there's something that was left unsaid, call this voicemail and tell them. Tell them what you're thinking. Tell them what you're feeling. I've called this a few times myself, just when I was thinking of people who have passed on, and I've left them messages. And I have to say, it's very cathartic to give yourself permission to speak to them directly. So give it a call. The number is 720-600-7056. That's 720-600-7056. You can also find it on our website, dttypodcast.com. And give them a call. Leave them a message. We will play some of these messages on reflections like this sometimes. We will probably put them on the site at some point just to share so that other people can hear and hopefully, again, normalize talking about death, dying, and life, but also grieving. It's very important. So thanks for your time. Hope you enjoyed today's reflection, and we'll talk to you again soon.